And as has already been told, we are Capoeira Mandinga Tucson, and we are going to give to you today the story of the origins of capoeira in a play we've put together called Freedom Through Capoeira. So, we're going to start off our story with a song about fighting for freedom, and then go in and start back in the very origins of the art. Quando vi bater na porta, olha só mamando chamar, era hora de lutar para jurar vencer, olha a batalha levará. Eu que nunca foi de lutar, nem tem de lutar, me governou, botei a arma na. Era hora de lutar, era tempo de brigar. So we're going to open our very ancient book of capoeira and bring you a story of capoeira, a dance, a fight for freedom, a game, a sport, and an art. Through hundreds of years of its history, capoeira is all of these. Created when Africans were brought from different regions of Africa, from different tribes, from different cultures, and they were forced together into enslavement in Brazil. But their spirits united with one common desire: freedom from the oppression of slavery. These Africans who were enslaved in Brazil brought with them only what was in their hearts and in their minds. They brought with them an instrument similar to what we use today as the lead instrument in capoeira, the berimbau. And they brought with them fighting styles similar to the Ngolo style from Africa. And they also brought with them the power of drumming and singing and call and response songs. Of their individual cultures and created something new to use in the fight for freedom. They called this fighting style capoeira. Is an art, a tradition, a story that has been passed down through hundreds of years by those in each generation who made capoeira part of their every living breath. These mestres and capoeiristas who trained with them kept alive the spirit of capoeira by passing down formal traditions, rules of etiquette, the style of the fight, and rhythms and songs. But capoeira masters also encouraged the growth in creativity, which has enabled capoeira to adhere to traditions and yet develop new elements as time goes by. New moves, new styles, new rhythms, and songs. We, Capoeira Mandinga Tucson, can trace our capoeira lineage directly back through several generations. To our Mestre Marcelo Caveirinha, who was the third capoeira master in the United States, to his Mestre Suassuna, who is now famous all over the world, and to Mestre Suassuna's Mestre Bimba, who was the creator of modern capoeira. In the last 40 years, capoeira has spread around the world, bringing together people of all cultures with its positive energy and its message of freedom. We are all here today to tell the capoeira story in the hopes that we can all better understand how bringing together different cultures can create something more beautiful and more powerful and more peaceful. We will take you back in time through the rhythms of the birimbau and travel to the beginnings of our capoeira story. First, Feiticeiro will play Maneira, a rhythm that was created by our Mestre Marcelo Caveirinha. And then to Miojinho, which was created by his Mestre Suassuna. And then back to Mestre Bimba's rhythms of Iuna, São Bento Grande de Regional, São Bento Pequeno, and finally to the most traditional and historical, Angola. The story of capoeira is an oral tradition, and the true nature of the early beginnings of capoeira are unclear. However, the story is passed on that the slaves were allowed to play capoeira after church on Sundays, and to church they wore their best white clothing, sometimes made of sackcloth. And because they were dressed in their best clothing, the tradition began that you never put anything but your hands and your head and your feet on the ground. And you could tell a poor capoeirista by one who had a dirty bottom. The other tradition that started was that they would make the game of capoeira look like a dance, because in that way, they didn't attract the attention of capoeira slave masters and others who might think that they were doing for naught. And so therefore, they made it look like a fun game with music and songs and rhythms. And then, but they always had this fear that capoeira would still be something that the slave masters would fear, and that they might want to stop the game. And so they always wanted a way to warn the capoeiristas not to make the games look really aggressive when a slave master was nearby. And so they started playing the rhythm cavalaria on the birimbau. And so the slaves would form rodas, circles in which they play the game, and learn to fight for their freedom. And so now we bring you to a capoeira Angola roda.
Igreja do Bonfim, Igreja do Bonfim, é mercado modelo, do penhorinho, ai, 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 abaixo do sapateiro, todo saco fio vermelho, eu me lembro do terreiro, Igreja do São Francisco, Igreja do São Francisco, é a Praça de Sé, onde ficam as baianas, ai, 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 vendendo acarajé, pra falar me tapuá, ela galdo vai ter camará, e viva meu Deus, e viva meu mestre, ora, ora, já vamos embora, sobrado de mamãe debaixo de aula, sobrado de mamãe debaixo de aula, debaixo de aula só brinca na areia, tem ouro, tem prata, tem diamante que nos alumeia. Tem ouro, tem prata, tem diamante que nos alumeia. Sobrado de mamãe debaixo de aula, sobrado de mamãe debaixo de aula, debaixo de aula só brinca na areia. Tem ouro, tem prata, tem diamante que nos alinha. Marinhão, Marinhão, oh, que saudade do meu Marinhão, oh, oh.
coração caiu no água e se molhou. Odisseia, meu senhor, e a manteiga derramou. And so the slaves escaped into the Amazon jungle and became free. In the jungle, there were many villages of escaped slaves, and the most famous of which was called Palmares, which lasted 67 years. In these villages, they defended their freedom using capoeira against slave masters and mercenaries who were hired by them. And in Palmares in particular, the martial art form of capoeira was refined. But a stick fight called jogo de bastões was also thought to defend the jungle villages against both those coming to recapture the slaves and also other invading jungle tribes. This stick fight is a remnant of a more complex warrior dance that is attributed to the Kukumbis of Angola. And the ritual of the dance symbolizes one's battle to defend his village against an invading tribe or force using only 2 sticks. One story of the origins of the dance is that there was an attack on a village, and a boy named Makulele was left alone in the village with the women and children when the men went out to hunt. And he was able to defend his village using this fight. And the story goes that at the beginning of the 1900s, a dance was created called Makulele to honor this boy and to show how it was that he won and protected his village from defeat. And so today, capoeira players are the ones who carry on the tradition of performing Makulele. in 1888, the slaves were freed, and many of them went into the cities, such as Salvador, Bahia, or Bahia, the capital of Brazil at the time, in order to find work. And there, they looked for work, but they also had a lot of time. And so they formed capoeira rodas and would play games on the streets. And one area that they played in was near the Mercado Modelo, an area at the base of where all the ships came in the Baía de Santos in Salvador, Brazil. And this Mercado Modelo still exists today, and it sells lots of wonderful items and traditional items. And so we bring you now to see the games that would happen at the Mercado Modelo. But what we will also see is that capoeira was seen by people who would use it for things that weren't so positive. And so muggers and robbers picked up some of the techniques. And that's another aspect of what we might see will happen in the Mercado Modelo. So as you can see, capoeira got kind of a bad name. And as a result of this bad activity, and also because the new Portuguese government in Brazil became afraid of cultural arts that might cause people to come together to uprise against them, they banned capoeira. And capoeira remained illegal until 1965. But there was one Mestre Bimba, who in the 1930s, he had friends who were in the government. And he knew that capoeira had a lot of good things. Not only had it helped the slaves fight for their freedom, but it had been used by the Portuguese in the war against Paraguay. And it also had a lot of positive elements of bringing kids off the streets. And so he convinced the government to allow him to do some shows. And those shows were really well received. And so he asked, "Can I open a school of capoeira?" And they said, "No, no, 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 no. Capoeira is illegal." And so he said, "Okay, then I will open a school of the regional art of Bahia." And so began what in reality became Capoeira Regional. And so now we take you to an academy in the Pelourinho, showing us capoeira. All right. So thank you very much for coming to see us. If you want to see more capoeira